He had been a man who could walk into any boardroom and command it without even raising his voice. People used to say Grant Mercer didn't just own half the skyline in Chicago, he owned the very air people breathed inside those towers. But all of that power, all of that control ended one night on a slick stretch of asphalt when he did something reckless, something noble, something no one expected. Grant saw the silver Mercedes in his rearview mirror fishtailing out of control, brakes gone, the driver screaming. He didn't think he just swerved, slammed his Porsche into the car, shoved it off the bridge railing and into a delivery truck instead of the freezing river below. He saved her life. But his car flipped 3 times and snapped his spine clean through. When the smoke cleared, he was alive. But he'd never walk again. Lying in the hospital tubes everywhere, Grant opened his eyes to see her Elena Price, the ex-wife who'd left him years earlier. Tears streamed down her flawless face as she clutched his hand. "You gave up everything for me, Grant. I'll never leave you again. We'll face this together." For a man shattered and terrified, those words felt like oxygen. He believed her. Everyone did. Nurses whispered about second chances. Doctors shook their heads at how devoted she seemed sleeping by his bed, spoon-feeding him reading the Wall Street Journal aloud so he'd feel like himself again. It looked like love. It smelled like love. It fooled him into thinking he hadn't lost everything. But devotion can be theater. Elena was the best actress Chicago had ever seen. 6 months later, when Grant was struggling through brutal rehab sessions, she sat beside him, tears glistening, whispering about remarrying. He wept, thinking he'd finally earned her love. They had a rooftop ceremony with roses she swore she'd grown herself. He thought it was the happiest day of his life. What he didn't see were the contracts she slipped under his shaking hand, calling them insurance forms. What he didn't know was that her lover, a slick corporate attorney named Vincent Kane, was waiting in a downtown office wiring Grant's empire into offshore accounts. Bit by bit, his life bled out on paper while he dreamed of the future. And then one morning, he woke up alone. Just a note on his nightstand. "I can't live like this. You'll understand one day." By noon, his assistant called, panicked, every asset liquidated, every property gone. His penthouse on Lakeshore Drive, his art collection, his fleet of cars, all stripped away. The divorce papers came that evening. No alimony, no fight, because she had already taken everything. Grant Mercer, the man who once held the city in his palm, was now sitting in a peeling 2-bedroom walk-up in Cicero, staring at a water-stained ceiling, wondering if he should have just let that Mercedes crash. The world forgot him. Friends stopped calling. The doorman who once smiled now barely nodded. Grant became invisible. And that might have been the end, if not for a woman who walked into his shabby office one Tuesday morning with a resume folded so many times it looked like origami. Her name was Naomi Brooks. She was 26, her navy dress threadbare, her shoes resoled more than once. She looked him dead in the eye, not at the chair, not at the cane, not at the weakness. "Mr. Mercer, I need this job, and I'll work harder than anyone you've ever hired." He almost laughed at her honesty, but something about the way she carried herself, shoulders back, chin steady, made him pause. "Tell me about yourself," he asked, expecting rehearsed lines. Instead, she told him about her dad's failed construction company, the debts, the heart attack, the repossessed house. She said it like it was weather, not pity. "I won't take charity," she added. "I'll earn every penny." Grant hadn't felt curious about another human being in months, but that day he did. By the time Naomi left, he realized he was smiling. He hadn't done that since before the accident. Weeks turned into months. Naomi brought coffee the way he liked it, strong with a dash of cinnamon, the way her grandmother taught her. She moved files where he could reach them without asking, adjusted his monitor so his neck wouldn't ache, handled clients with warmth instead of false cheer. She didn't see a crippled man. She saw a man worth following. And when she laughed at his dry jokes, the sound hit him like sunlight breaking through prison bars. One stormy night, lightning knocking out the office lights, they sat in the dark, talking until Grant admitted, voice low, "My shoulders, always tense now." Without hesitation, Naomi stepped behind him, her hands firm but gentle, kneading away months of pain. He turned to face her. their eyes locked. And in the glow of city lights bleeding through rain-soaked glass, their lips met. "Naomi," he whispered, heart pounding like it wanted to burst through his chest. "I know this is crazy," she breathed back, "but I've never felt anything like this." It was the first time since his accident that Grant felt alive again. Days later, he asked her to marry him, promising to take care of her family's debts. She cried, said yes, and for once his life wasn't defined by loss, but by a future. Their wedding was small, in a modest church garden, sunlight painting colors through stained glass. Naomi's family sat stiff, judging, whispering that she was wasting her youth on a man in a chair. But when they exchanged vows, her promising to love, not despite his scars, but because of them, him calling her his salvation, the room fell silent, awed. For a while, life was good, but Naomi's family, they were poison. Her mother, Lorraine, moved into their new house and began criticizing everything. "This coffee's bitter. Don't you know how to keep a man happy?" Her sister Ivy strutted around in skimpy clothes, brushing her hands on Grant's shoulders when Naomi turned away, purring, "You look so handsome today, Grant." Her brother Darren stole from wallets, treated credit cards like his own. The breaking point came during a dinner party with Grant's last remaining business contacts. Naomi had worked herself ragged to make it perfect. Ivy raised her glass, smiling sweet as venom. "Let's be honest. My sister's just a live-in nurse who got lucky marrying her patient." The room froze. Naomi's face paled, hands trembling. But then she lifted her chin, voice steady as steel wrapped in silk. "You're right, I am lucky. Lucky to marry a man who values kindness over cruelty, character over convenience. Some people never find that kind of luck, especially those too busy taking to learn how to give." The guest nodded, impressed. Ivy flushed red, exposed as petty. Grant looked at Naomi like he was falling in love all over again. But Naomi wasn't done fighting for him. Late at night, while Grant slept, she scoured medical journals until she found a doctor in London experimenting with stem cell therapy. The cost was staggering. She sold her grandmother's pearls, emptied her savings, even pawned her own wedding ring. When she handed Grant the documents on their anniversary, wrapped like a gift, she whispered, "This is hope." He protested they couldn't afford it. She insisted. He went. Alone because Naomi's family pulled their dirtiest trick yet. Lorraine faked heart trouble. Ivy slithered around Grant with silk robes Darren manufactured crises. And an old family friend, slick lawyer Adrian Cole, whispered poison in Naomi's ear. 6 months is a long time apart. Maybe fate's telling you where you really belong. They cornered her until she had to stay. While Grant was in London, relearning how to stand Naomi's own family threw her out of her home. She ended up in a tiny apartment, broke, caring for her mother until her final breath, only to hear Lorraine's last words, bitter as bile. "You cursed us by marrying that broken man." Naomi buried her with her own hands, then cried herself to sleep in an empty room, clutching letters to her husband she couldn't afford to send. When Grant finally returned braces on his legs, able to take halting steps, he came home to find Naomi gone. Her family staged everything, photos of her with Adrian, a forged letter saying she'd run off. They told him she'd chosen a real man. For a moment, Grant almost believed them. But instinct screamed something was wrong. And when an old groundskeeper quietly said, "Mr. Mercer, I saw how that girl loved you, she'd never walk away," Grant began digging. Credit card records, phone bills, inconsistencies everywhere. He finally tracked Naomi down to the crumbling brownstone where she'd buried her mother. He found her in the garden, thin and exhausted, kneeling by the grave. When she turned and saw him standing shaky, but standing, her face lit up like sunrise. She ran to him, sobbing. "They told me you'd left me." He held her, whispered, "They told me the same. But I knew my heart wouldn't lie." That night they reclaimed everything: love, dignity, even intimacy stolen by lies. And the next day, they walked back into his house side by side. Naomi's family froze, exposed. Lorraine's glass shattered on the floor. Ivy went pale. Darren stammered. Naomi's voice rang clear. "You tried to destroy us, but I forgive you, and now you will leave this house and never come back." They left with their heads bowed, exiled by the very daughter they'd underestimated. Driving back through the city, Grant and Naomi spotted a figure slumped on a street corner. Elena Price, once the queen of high society, now begging in rags with a cardboard sign. Naomi asked softly, "Should we stop?" Grant pressed the gas eyes forward. "No. Some people write their own justice. And that's how a man who lost everything, his fortune, his body, his dignity, found a love strong enough to burn away betrayal." But here's the question I'll leave you with when family turns into poison. Do you cut them off completely, or do you keep forgiving until it kills you? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever seen someone betrayed by the people who should have protected them? Was Naomi right to forgive, or should she have burned every bridge? Let's talk about it, because stories like this aren't just fiction. They're mirrors of the world we live in.